Hey, this is part two of my conversation with Marc Carey, CEO of Evolution Music, who are a company that are developing sustainable options within the music industry. This is a video about their Evovinyl, a vinyl made of bioplastics, plant-based material, basically. It's actually amazing. That has garnered the attention across the music industry, involving Earth Percent, Brian Eno, Coldplay, Nile Rodgers, Michael Stipe. This is part two, where we focus on some of the feedback that they've got from the pressing plants, and also we're looking at some of the more practical aspects of using this vinyl. Do I need different gear? Do I need to clean it differently? How long will it last? How does it sound? All these things we're going to explore. Marc's going to share some of the industry support that Evolution Music have and are hoping to work with in the future. There's just so much awesome stuff in this video. If you haven't watched part one, I'd encourage you to do that first. But either way, a massive thanks for watching. Please share your thoughts in the comments. Please like, subscribe, and make sure you follow Evolution Music. Their work is awesome. Really grateful to have this opportunity to speak to them. And yeah, enjoy part two, guys. So this is Marc Carey, CEO and co-founder of Evolution Music. This was recorded on the 24th of March 2025. That point you made about, you're not asking for new presses, you're not asking for new plants being built. It's literally the product itself will do the work, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing.
And that was kind of where we started from with the process. It was like, because we've seen some really great innovation. There's a Dutch company called Green Vinyl, and they designed a really great new press that uses, I think they use PET in that, more environmentally friendly pressing. The problem is that it was quite expensive, and the infrastructure for it was quite expensive. So you're asking people to change their infrastructure in order to use a more ecologically sound product. Yeah. It just becomes a little less viable and comes with more challenges. So I know they're now working with an American partner. I believe that's common knowledge now, and kind of moving forward with their products, which is great. And then, of course, we've seen some of the traditional suppliers of PVC creating their versions of a kind of bio vinyl. It's not what we do. It's a step in the right direction. It's not as good as what we do. Of course, I'm going to say that. I could give you all sorts of reasons why it's inferior, but it's a step in the right direction. It's it's a move away from one element of PVC manufacture, for example, or a cleaner PVC manufacturing process.
No, that's it. It is, and it's everyone working together, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, thank you, Marc. It sounds amazing, the work you and your team are doing in terms of creating this new product. In terms of just before I go to some the practical vinyl questions, in terms of the product itself, do you feel like there's a point you need to get until you're fully satisfied with what you want to put out, or like how are you feeling about it at this moment in time?
Yeah, we are just about to launch the compound into the market for manual presses.
Amazing.
So that's we will be making announcements about that, and working with our certain labels, artists, to continue with proof of concept, because part of this is we're an independent company. It's been difficult to get to where we are. It's taken friendly investment and deep pockets on our part, and a lot of sweat equity, and a lot of belief and trust. But that's the true entrepreneurship of what we're doing, really. Yeah. It's not the Dragon's Den kind of apprentice type faux entrepreneurship. This is real entrepreneurship. We're risking everything to make something that will make a difference, but ultimately create revenue for us in the future, so we can reinvest in new products. But the reason I mention that is that, so we are going to come into the market, but we're not going to go fully blown into the market. We're going to take it step by step and still take our time, even though that's the harder route. Because, for example, there's a lot of auto presses in the infrastructure, and our compound doesn't always work well on an auto press because it's a slightly softer in its nature. So we want to do a bit more work around that but we're working with the manufacturers, the likes of New Built Viral Tech, people that manufacture the machines,
Mm,
and they're working specifically on the compound because they love it and they want to see it in the
brilliant.
market. So in it, you will see, yeah, you will see this compound in the market, and even we're thinking, not giving too much away here, but it's a kind of translucent color when it's pressed.
Okay.
And so we're gonna. I think the first few projects are just going to be the translucent versions. We can do coloured versions. We can add carbon black. We can add colours. But then now you're starting to go back down the route of where you started from with vinyl.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we might just do those first few products as these translucent, and they'll probably become collector's items. That's the way it
Yeah. Yeah.
goes.
Yeah. Absolutely. Sounds exciting then. On the cusp of really putting it out there. That's awesome. So I guess for the people that love records, some of the key things, myself included, are we're talking a lot about sustainability, which absolutely is huge and part of why I got in touch with you guys because of that specific element. But ultimately, we want
Mm.
to enjoy our records, don't we? So, in terms of you mentioned sound quality earlier, is it? Would you say it's comparable to what's out there now? Is it something What I guess would you notice a difference? I guess is I'm asking.
No. Well, the most recent compound, really interesting actually. Or the most recent pressing of the compound, sonically, there's never really been that much difference. And there's and because you've probably got a sophisticated vinyl audience as well. You'll know
Yeah.
that, for example, if we were working with, there's a great label called Hospital Records. They do D&B, do drum and bass stuff. Now, when you're cutting for drum and bass or anything that's bass heavy, you're going to be cutting into the lacquer a bit deeper, maybe a bit wider.
Mm,
So that often means that you need like a 180 gram, a nice big heavy piece
mm,
of vinyl. And also sometimes if it's cut too deep, depending on what you're playing it on, the record can skip as well. This is again depending on what system you've got. So why am I mentioning that? Well, what's really interesting is for some reason our compound seems to enhance the low frequencies in the bass.
oh,
So
interesting.
we feel like some of those 180 cuts that you wouldn't get away with in a lighter
Mm,
vinyl pressing, we think we can get away with it at 160, for example, maybe even 140. So
wow.
and this is just the nature of the compound in the way it transfers the sound. And so and also to compare it to traditional, the most recent pressing. So we had a version that was pressed on the previous iteration of our Evovinyl. We had a vinyl cut and we had our cut. And then working with a couple of really great producers who are based in the south of England, a gentleman by the name of Tim Belcher, people might know him as Timo Garcia or Nolan, and also Gordon Kaye, a very famous DJ and producer. And they kind of played around with it, used different styluses, different setups in their studio.
Mm,
And then Timo very cleverly recorded it digitally as clear and as crisp as he could. And then he kind of cut the three versions into one song. So we could do some
oh,
blind
okay.
testing
Yeah. Yeah.
to see if you can tell the difference. It,
No.
I mean, to our trained ears in the office, in our studio, we couldn't see where the cuts were at all. It was
Mm,
so. That's a great example of
nice.
the sort of
Yeah. Really good
extent we
example.
go into to see if we can find out if it is if it sounds any different. Because previous
Fantastic.
iterations, you've had that surface noise to deal with, and so I can see that we've seen feedback. People have said, "Oh, I listened to one once, and it was the surface noise was really bad." Um, I get that. That's why it was a proof of concept.
Yeah.
We've been working
Yeah.
on
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, all right. Well, I mean, that sounds positive, doesn't it? Particularly when at the end of the day, we just want to hear music we love. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
that sounds awesome. In terms of the practicalities, that you don't need any additional equipment. I'm assuming there's no in terms of cleaning it and looking after it. What is there any difference?
No, no, clean it in exactly the same way. We've got so we got we have a vinyl shop where we have a lot of second-hand vinyl in there as well as new. And Adrian, who I mentioned earlier, he runs the shop for us, and he's cleaning records all day long. So he's used various cleaning materials on our pressings, and even did a few of his own little tests where he left it in solution for a period of time, and and
really give it a
stuff
test.
like that. Yeah, and it. I mean, in the short term, there was no difference to cleaning as you would cleaning vinyl. Yeah, traditional vinyl.
Yeah. No specialist styluses or anything like that needed.
No, I mean we are talking to Goldring about a potential for a complementary cartridge.
Okay.
Using maybe some of our using some of our compound material because of the anti-static properties. But that's a whole other conversation. But otherwise, no, just your normal.
No, just use what you got. Nice.
Yeah.
And people talking about, when we mention the word sustainable or eco-friendly, whatever you want to use, it might paint the picture of the biodegradable bag that you can get from Tesco's. Will the vinyl last as long as traditional vinyl? Have you been able to test the longevity of it?
Yeah. So in normal storage environment that you store your vinyl. So again, this was the work we did with the National Physical Laboratories. So 3 months, roughly 3 months worth of testing where we aged it in comparison to a PVC version. And we used humidity testing, heat testing. And I say the only two kind of differences in the aging process, the aged vinyl, when you put it under stress, it sort of snapped, and ours just bent. It didn't snap. Okay. So it remains kind of its soft, like base position, I guess. The other thing was, they did scratch testing, like proper scratch testing, not scratch testing. And on the traditional vinyl, where the reason you get the jumps is because the kind of microscopic level, the vinyl has been pushed into little peaks, like sharp peaks. Again, because of the softness of ours, it's a bit more rounded, so the needle doesn't jump as much. Not that you want to scratch your records, of course. And then, of course, and then the last thing, of course, was the anti-static properties. So they were the only differences. Awesome. Yeah, and that was a 50-year aging process. So
wow, amazing.
Yeah, provided you're storing them in, you're not putting them in a damp garage, but then you find
sticking them loose on the window ledge, or whatever. Yeah. What about we talked about recycling. I don't want I want to make sure we're clear on that. Is this something you could chuck in the composter, or what does that mean in terms of being able to recycle this material?
Again, we wanted to have options for end of life. So waste material can be reground and reused in pressing. So that's one thing. The product at the minute is industrially compostable, which basically means you just give it out with your typical industrial composting that goes off to your big plants. But because the holy grail that we're heading for is domestically compostable. I think it'd be fair to say we're halfway there at the moment. But again, most people that collect vinyl, that it's the last thing on their mind. Probably a very small percentage of vinyl collectors. Yeah. They go, let's a couple of listens dig out with the carrot stuff,
But yeah, I mean, it'll save the stack in the charity shop, I guess, when it reaches, potentially, depending on what's in your collection.
Yeah, I mean, dare I say it? We do see it in our shop quite often. You'll have somebody that's been an avid collector and sadly they pass away, and then maybe their children inherit it or their partner, and they haven't got a clue to do with it, and they're like, I was just going to throw it out, and you think, no, hang on, let's have a look at that. So in those extreme examples, at least it's not going to do harm to the planet. But might do harm to us as vinyl collectors in thinking we've lost a diamond. But
yeah, exactly. And you mentioned it's translucent. Or
yeah,
and
I haven't got one
in its kind of core state.
Yeah, I'll send you a couple of pictures that you can maybe use.
Yeah,
actually.
thank you, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of the most recent, because the other cool. Sorry to interrupt you, mate. I was going to say the cool thing about that is if you've got really good slip mats that maybe got great patterns on, it kind of comes through, so it's quite cool.
Yeah, awesome.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, it's fine. No, it's nice to have your insight. Is there potential for colouring? Is that something you've looked at, or is that a bit further down the line?
Yeah, I mean we've got a full range of colours that we've already pressed. We've already pressed a blue vinyl and an orange vinyl.
Oh yeah, you said you said you had the splatter earlier. Yeah,
we did the splatter version as well. So this is, we're also partners in a new pressing plant in Brighton, Brighton Vinyl, and this will become our R&D hub. So we spent so long, I said 5 years, sort of getting to this point that actually now we can start to do the fun stuff. Let's play around with colours. Let's do some splatter effects. It's actually. I mean, I guess it has been fun, but it's been stressful as well. But this is now like, okay, let's do the nice stuff. Let's play around with different versions. Yeah, so we're looking forward to that.
That's wicked. I hope I've covered all the practical side of things. I'm sure some vinyl nuts will have a go at me for missing some questions that they wanted answered. But for myself, you mentioned obviously collaboration with some key figures has been really important in progressing the project. Are you happy to share kind of who's kind of on board artistically, or some companies that have shown interest? Because these are the people that are going to help really bring it forward industry-wide, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think the first I've kind of already given a shout out to Music Declares and Earth%, but there's also people like DJs for Climate Action. We're working with them on a project. There's also the group. There's a group that I don't know if they still exist formally, but AIM have got a sustainability group. Impala have got a sustainability group, and lots of those members are labels and managers, for example, that we've worked with. So again, Beggars Group are really at the forefront of this movement as well, because Ian Stanton, who is there, I think he was one of the first appointments of a sustainability expert in a label, and that was at Beggars Group in the UK. His predecessor, Will, has now moved on, but Ian Stanton leads on that. There's a lot of great work going on in the live music scene as well. So again, there's some crossover there. Claire O'Neill, and then there's a BPI, Roxy at BPI. They're doing some great stuff. But yeah, I've spoken to, I'd say, all the major labels at C-suite level in the last few years. That's pretty much my job now. Ditto owners of pressing plants around the world, major artists. We just did a project with Camille Cabello last year, which was a one-off pressing with Bacardi. And again, the reason for that is this is Bacardi obviously use sugar for creating rum. So there's a nice connection there between our products. We use sugar waste, for example, so that's the kind of thing. I don't think I'm giving too much away. The sort of thing we'll look at in the future. So if you've got a company like Bacardi and they've got a lot of waste from their rum production, can we use some of the starch element that they're not using for our products in their waste product? So that's why we did that project, really. So good. And then there's we did with Earth%. We worked with Coldplay, Lyle Rogers, Frank Moody, Say She, a whole raft of different people that came on board, and then independent projects that we've done with smaller artists or emerging artists. So
amazing. I guess I just realised one key question we touched on it earlier was cost. You
yeah,
mentioned that you're trying to match or at least make it comparable. Are you happy to kind of share where we're at, or where you hope things to be at when it is out there?
yeah. I think there's probably two. I'd like to answer that in two ways, if I may.
Yeah, that's
So
fine.
the first one is, if you're doing a like for like currently between PVC and Evovinyl compound, then we are going to be more expensive. However, if you contextualize that in the cost of the record, it's no different to you saying, I want my record to be in a single sleeve or in a gatefold. It's such a small percentage of the overall cost of the record that it's another choice. Do you want a glossy cover? Do you want an insert? Do you want gatefold? Do you want double album? They cost you more. Do you want Evo vinyl instead of PVC? It will cost you a little bit more, but it's minimal in the cost for the consumer. That's one thing. Of course, the other thing is, as we go through the life cycle analysis and we start pressing in longer kind of press runs, if we're saving energy and costs for the manufacturer, then we have to factor that into the pricing. If let's say, for example, it costs, I'm just paraphrasing, but let's say it costs £2.50 a unit to press a traditional PVC vinyl and sell it on to the distributor, right? Let's say it's that. If we come along and we add another 40 pence on that, now it becomes £2.90. But suddenly it's costing you 50 pence less to press it because you're not using as much energy. Then now we're below the cost of traditional PVC. So you've got to kind of consider all of that. The whole
cycle of it. That's amazing, really. When you're talking, from what I'm hearing, Mark, it sounds like the costs are not insane. You're not talking insane increases here for a product that makes a massive difference. From what I'm hearing, on many levels. Oh, one thing I think might be useful to touch on is obviously we're talking about sustainable means of listening to music, and I'm sure some people are going to say, well, streaming doesn't cost anything. But looking into that, I think people just aren't aware of the particularly the environmental cost of billions of people streaming things. Do you want to touch on that at all, or is that worth mentioning?
Yeah, sure. I mean, probably the way to contextualize that is that some of the feedback that we've had. So for example, people might say, "Oh, the amount of PVC that's used to produce virgin records, as it were, compared to the amount of work, the amount of PVC used in pipe work, is minimal." And I get that, but I don't work in the built environment anymore.
Yeah,
that's their problem to fix, right? I'm trying to fix the one we've got in front of us, which is records. So, yeah, I understand that in terms of the amount of PVC that's manufactured around the world, our PVC is a drop in the ocean. But in our industry, it's a big drop in the ocean, right? Because it's within. So that's one thing. The other thing is that the next question would be, well, touring and streaming services, and they've all got bigger carbon footprint than just pressing vinyl. Absolutely correct. And CDs are still manufactured. We even got cassettes being manufactured, right? But again, those are problems that need to be addressed. And guess what? We'll be at the forefront of that. We're working with streaming companies right now. I've already mentioned, some like greener festivals. I'm already working with people that are looking to green the industry in a number of different ways. So anything that we can do as Evolution around innovation or research and development to create meaningful, sustainable solutions for the music industry, we will do. This is the first thing we're doing. So again, it's not like we're just going to do this and run off to an island somewhere. That's not our business model. We've done this, we get it in the market, we'll move on to the next issue and we'll help people to address that. So to answer your question, people should just do a little bit of their own research, find out and read Decompose. That book's a great start, by the way, by Carl Devine. To understand what's really going on in the industry. Yeah.
No, brilliant. Thank you, Mark. I guess well, you kind of touched on it. My ending question was going to be where do you want Evolution Music to go? But I think you kind of summed it up in that last point. Really, is there anything you want to add or want to share? How people can kind of find your stuff and get involved?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if they Google Evolution Music, then we kind of pop up top of the
Yeah.
tree. But it's evolution-music.co.uk. Obviously, keep an eye on us on socials. Now that we've actually got something to celebrate and sell, you'll probably see a few more socials. We do get opportunities such as this, and thank you very much again for taking the time to talk to us today. I really appreciate it. I think the most important thing is that keep an open mind. You know, our future is what we decide it's going to be, right? I've said that many times. You know, we are architects of our own future, and we don't have to accept the status quo. Excuse the pun. And we need to move forward. So we're doing it in the music industry. We're seeing it in other industries as well. And if people want to be, you know, an advocate for what we do, you know, get behind it. If you like what we do, tell people about it. If you don't like what we do, tell people about it. And if you don't like what we do and you think we're doing it wrong, tell us why. Because discourse is the only way we're going to get through this as well. You know, we need to have conversations about what really matters. So yeah, the future has got to be open discourse, collaboration, and more innovation.
Yeah, brilliant. That's fantastic, Mark. I think that's everything, mate. I think I think I've covered all. I'm sure when I look back on this, I'll be like, why didn't I ask Mark that? But no, I really appreciate you making the time and sharing this awesome product that hopefully we'll get to see, in the near future.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for your time as well. It's great to be part of this. I'm really pleased that we
Oh,
were able
thank
to
you, man.
find the time.
So a massive thank you to Mark there for sharing his time and his expertise. I'm looking forward to see what's to come in the future. I'll definitely be keeping an eye out. And guys, again, make sure you follow Evolution Music. All the links are down below in the description box. If you enjoyed this video, please like, please comment, and follow the channel if you enjoy it, guys. I really love all your input. Massive thanks to all you guys for watching. Take it easy.